Hello everyone, welcome to Sosin classes. Myself Srilekha S. Hegade. I'm a student of Anthropology optional in Sosin classes. Along with us, we have two other students named Krishna Shri
Yeah, hi ma'am, good morning.
and Ram Mohan.
Hello everyone, good morning ma'am.
We are here to discuss the frequently asked questions by UPSC aspirants regarding which optional to select and how to proceed with its preparation. So, to answer our queries, we have Sosin ma'am along with us. Welcome, ma'am. So, jumping on to the very first question. So, to what extent will taking coaching for optional subject help us in our UPSC preparation?
See, when you talk about choosing optional and then coaching, whether it is required or not, there are two things that are involved. First thing is, suppose you are selecting a subject from your own background. Say you have done civil engineering, you would want to take civil engineering as your optional subject. Most of the study you have done in your college. So it would be like wrapping up the whole thing and tuning your preparation for the UPSC exam and trying to write answers, and you need to have somebody, a mentor, who would simply give you questions and kind of, because you already know the whole thing, the concepts and everything is known to you. But then if it is a new subject, something that you did not study in your graduation, and in such a case it definitely requires some kind of an external help. I am not saying that it is a proper coaching or whatsoever, but then you see it's like this, most of the optional subjects, they fall into this category of huge syllabus, I mean considerably huge syllabus, and even if it is a smaller one, the variation may not be so much. So it jolly good takes about 1 year or more, if at all somebody is trying to do by himself or herself, and that's where I think coaching can simplify the things. It's only for that, and we don't suspect the genius of the students. I mean, if at all you are working throughout with that particular subject for a year or year and a half, you would be able to understand and do things. But the crux of the story is to do the things in the minimum possible time, because if a student is starting by himself or herself, you start with the scratch and you try to understand every aspect of it. That takes time. So when you are not an expert in that subject, if some expert is explaining to you, it would rather save your time, save your understanding. You might not be knowing the whole lot of books, what to read from, where to read, what should be the depth through which you should go. I mean, that's where a teacher actually helps.
So it means an engineer taking anthropology as optional won't be a risky choice.
Definitely not, definitely not. Because as you were studying in the classroom program also, we spoke this many times, if you remember, that we have anthropologists from different background, that may be engineering, geography or whatsoever background, doesn't matter actually. I mean, it's like that difference doesn't matter as long as you understand the content.
Thank you.
Yeah, ma'am, I have a question regarding how to select and what is the criteria of selection the optional subjects from many one. What is the main criteria, and did we select, as you said, as you mentioned, from the background of our study, but it's very boring for us because we study for a long 4 years. So what is the criteria that you mentioned, and that is very important to pick an optional?
I mean, that's, I think, a $1,000,000 question people always struggle before finally putting a dot on, this is going to be my subject. And also that we have seen students who might have changed the optional n number of times, 3, 4, 5 times people change, and finally, with one particular subject, I remember several people like that who might have studied 4 or 5 optional subjects. And every time it boils down to saying that why don't you excel in your own subject rather than changing the optional kind of a thing. But yeah, first and foremost thing I must say is something clicks. Something clicks. As I always say, it's like selecting your life partner. When you are choosing, sometimes there are reasonable answers, rational answers based on which you are choosing. sometimes irrational basis based on which we do. But then if at all we have to bring it down to 3 or 4 pointers, first thing generally we say is look at the familiarity, if at all you feel familiar with the subject or not, before going through a particular coming to a conclusion on any particular subject. You go through number of subjects and see how similar they are. You look at the old questions, whether you feel good to read them, you feel confident to answer them. I mean, at that stage you don't know anything about the subject, but then you are trying to figure out. And what popularly students do is you go back, see the scores. Some optional might have gotten a 400 out of 500, I mean randomly I am saying 360, 370. I mean ultimately that attracts. When you are looking at that number, what student doesn't think about in general is how much work might have gone into that. You are only looking at that number 360, 370. The entire labor behind that 370 goes unnoticed. So, in every subject people have scored well. So, just because one person had scored 370 or 400, we cannot jump on to say that okay, this is a scoring one. So, across the plane we see. So, one is your familiarity and comfort. So, a general reading one has to do, some kind of random books you take up and see the content. Second thing is what kind of scoring, to what extent one can go. And maybe perhaps you will have to also see the availability of material, the books, and how availability of guides are there, guides to teach you, to coach you, kind of things. And yeah, your own interest to sustain. As you said, after 4 years of studying a subject, you get really lost and you really do not want to, you get bored of it. When it comes to UPSC, if things go well in the first attempt or second attempt, you are getting through fine. Otherwise, if you have to give 3 attempts, 4 attempts, same syllabus you are studying, though there are updations, same economy, same polity, same this thing, we cannot say that say I am bored and you ask UPSC change the option, change the syllabus, kind of a thing. But then we should have that kind of a consistency, we should have that attachment that we should have to develop, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And in addition to that, what time do you feel as a prime time to start the preparation for optional subject?
In the sense that you are asking about from the graduation, is it that or?
Yeah, so we are seeing that people started to study for UPSC right from the colleges now. Yes. So, and in contrast to that, we have the people who actually are into the job profiles and they wanted to give for UPSC exam. So, what time do you think as a prime time to start?
One thing is, it depends on when you have decided to study for this exam. Sometimes after you join the job, you are coming to understand that okay, this can be one subject, this can be one exam that I can write. So, a career reorientation you are trying to take. But then some people might have decided in the graduation itself that see, I'll take up this particular exam. So, suppose I'll take up both the things. Suppose you are somebody who have already been into some career and now you are thinking of shifting your career. The problem would be that along with the career, if you are studying. So, I think that is where you can first start with your optional, you finish your optional, then go to the general studies, and optional would take limited time after you have finished it, and kind of. So, it holds good to say that you first finish your optional, then go to general studies. And when it comes to the students who are in their graduation, second, third year, whatsoever, my very personal kind of an opinion is that do not try to unnecessarily spoil your college days. I mean, you should actually spend time in your college in the right possible way. That's the time for. And in addition to that, some bit of time if you can take out, fine. It is not that as a mission you are taking up right from the first grade. I mean, kind of. It shouldn't go that way. I mean, at right time you should be able to. Nevertheless, what I find is there are enough number of smart students coming up. second, third year of graduation, I see students coming up with the kind of understanding and knowledge. That's really incredible. I think that's where generations are maturing much faster, I guess, the kind of exposure they are getting. So maybe second or third year when you are starting. When exactly to do optional, there are different opinions rather. What I believe is that most of the optional subjects, I mean, there might be a difference in the combination of what is static and what is dynamic, but the various concepts that you are studying, more or less when they are static, I mean the basic foundational things are there. So first you finish your optional subject, maybe 6 months or 8 months, whatever, and then you start with your general studies. This you try to upgrade from time to time. I think that's a better way of doing things. Even if you are after the graduation, if you are starting, you try to see to it that 1.5 years of gap is there. First you finish your optional, then you go for your general studies. That I think is ideal way of doing.
Ma'am, we see that many students take up anthropology as optional because it's in trend and many toppers are scoring very well in that and getting rank. So what is your say on that?
Yeah, it's trending in Netflix also, anthropology trending kind of. Yeah, from time to time we see that some subjects are doing good kind of a thing. Some subjects in certain years might be scoring well, certain years they may not be scoring well. The graph might be very steep upwards and very steep downwards sometimes. But I think when it comes to anthropology, somehow I think it is I don't know, maybe anthropology was lucky that there are scores that are reasonable. I mean, they did not go very down. There are stable scores across the years. So maybe if at all we take the history of it about 2 decades or so, we see that right from 1990s onwards, we see the subject has done really good. I mean, it did not betray people, it stood by, it gave scores. So I think that's where people are getting attracted to the subject kind of. So this is a very trustworthy subject, very faithful if you are putting your faith. That's how I look at it.
Yes, ma'am. Many of the people think that anthropology is a science and it's like a psychology. They're studying about what's the people thinking about some particular things, like it's a study of history, and they are thinking like that. What is the words that you give a short glance about the subject of anthropology to the students that who are beginners?
If you don't mind, I mean, we have just concluded your course. So if I ask you that is it psychology, I mean, what do you say?
I just said that we have studied from the point of how the man is evolved and how the stages of life going on, and what are the cultures that we adapt from one society to another. I just studied all of that stuff, and genetics and about our tribal problems, and what are the developments that we have to come up with. All that stuff we have studied in our classes.
So did we come across this any time? Individual psychological studies, individual behavioral studies. Did we talk about this?
In some classes we just talk about a little things, not in advancement, I think.
So it's not truly individual centered behavioral study. Even if we are studying individual, it is the group's behavior. You remember that word that we use, what is that group and personality or behavior, what is that word?
Well, actually many people think that we just anthropology is a study about a single individual, but it's not the study of an individual, right, ma'am?
So it's like, for a culture group, for a group of people, we try to study the behavioral aspects. So like national character studies, every nation has got its own personality, every caste has its own personality. So it is, though individually studied, individual as a part of the culture group we study. So definitely there is a difference. There are psychologists who have come to this subject. there are historians who come to this subject, but definitely there are intersections, no, different disciplines have intersections, but they are not exactly the same, they are different. I mean, there are definitely intersections. When you study archaeology, you are studying a part of history, kind of things, but then not exactly the same. You are not perhaps talking about world history, you are not perhaps talking about Indian independence movement and things like that. Wherever necessary, approaches we copy, kind of.
Can you give a glance about anthropology? Like for the beginners, they don't know how to. I mean, what are the things that we are dealing with in anthropology subject? So, can you give some, I mean, glance about the syllabus? Like, what are the topics that are included in the anthropology optional?
Generally, what we tell the students is first you memorize the syllabus. Many students do not know the syllabus, they do not see the syllabus. Seeing the syllabus, memorizing is very important. In 1 or 2 lines, if we have to tell about the context, the subject that we study is studying the humans from different parameters, like how man behaves in an economic situation, how the humans have to be studied from the political point of view, how from a belief system point of view, or how biologically evolution is happening, how the past of the man was, how the future can be, like in the COVID situations, kind of people started to talk about how do we predict the pandemics, kind of things. So, man is the central theme, man, that is the human, Homo sapiens is the central theme. This Homo sapiens can be understood from various parameters. That's how we. So, the entire syllabus that is listed in UPSC's document is segmentization of all these things, political, economic and various other things. So, man is the central theme.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, so how to interlink the topics from paper 1 and paper 2, and what's your suggestion for the scheme of studying? Like, what are the topics that to be studied to get a better hold of the subject?
And 2 questions are there in what you have asked. One is how to interlink, the second thing is
The scheme of study.
Scheme of studies, in what order we should study, is it that? I will talk about the second one first, the scheme. As in your class also I said to you that don't go in a chronological order. You are not supposed to start from chapter 1 and go 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of. Whereas there can be best places from where one can start. Your batch we started with what? Theories we have started. Some batches we start with the tribal studies, some batches we start with social system, etc. But what I find is, if one is starting with anthropological theory, that would be the best way of approaching the subject. I am sure when we were doing anthropological theory in the beginning, you might have got clueless initially, not knowing where we are going, or maybe occasionally thinking whether we are going in a right direction, whether the choice of the optional was right or not, kind of a thing. Because for most of you, I think in your class 2 people were there who studied anthropology, but I mean that's also a rarity. But then, so starting with anthropological theory gives you the best way of approaching the subject. You know what the thinkers have faced and how they have given the subject, and that is the way. Or there are other ways of doing. If you want to start on a lighter way of understanding, Indian society could be, but Indian society is something that is difficult to properly present, and you should have that interest in the so called Indian or Hinduism. So, you come from some other background, you are starting with Hindu, I am sure you would be baffled and kind of. So, that is one. Best way of starting is to start with theory, which you can accommodate everywhere in the syllabus. The second thing that you have asked is how to interlink. See, as we have done in your course, whenever we are doing certain topics, say religion we have done, or archaeology we have done, or economic systems, wherever similar things are there, you try to study them together. That is the first way of interlinking. Second thing is the incorporation of theory in every topic that you are writing about. So, in every topic there is some kind of a theoretical perspective given by classical thinkers or otherwise. So, one is doing the similar things together across paper 1 and paper 2, so that examples can be easily, content can easily flow from one paper to the other. Second thing is, in all the questions trying to incorporate anthropological theory, this is the other way of doing. And thirdly, when we are trying to answer, we have to try to see to it that maybe in small or big amount, there might be several contexts where we might have used. Say, when you are reading tribal health, some diseases we might have studied. That would be helpful in topics like health related studies, epidemiological studies. They look to be very random, very distant examples, but then you should have that knack when you are studying an ethnograph. From there you are pulling up a data and trying to put it as an example. So, that is the third level of incorporation. First two, I think they can be easily done.
Before asking my next question, I must confess the journey through anthropological theories was a beautiful journey, and that made me feel like, yes, I am at the right place with the right optional. So thanks to
Thank
you.
you so much.
So thanks to you. So as we can see that anthropology is mostly static subject. So how can we add some freshness or newness to our answers?
Two things here. One is when we say static, static in terms of whether content is changing or not. Secondly, if any new developments have happened. When I say new developments, it may not be discoveries alone, like a new archaeological find we have got. It is not like that, or a new genetic technique was incorporated in mating practices and trying to understand consanguineous mating kind of thing. I am not talking about that. I am talking about why a particular topic is more relevant today, why I should study this particular topic for this exam in the upcoming exam. So, static is like understanding the basic concepts. When it comes to dynamic one is based on developments world over. A conference had happened, they submitted a paper. So, that becomes a very important topic to study. Otherwise, in the other years you may not consider that to be a very important topic, but because somebody had written a book, somebody had submitted a paper, somebody had received an international award. So, that becomes an important thing. And secondly, real dynamic things, like after the COVID literature started flooding the discipline, whether in the social plane, even in the new concept of untouchability that has come after COVID. So, based on the developments in the various aspects of our life, topics would become more relevant, and based on that we should actually try to add up things.
So where can we check for like the current updates and all?
Bluntly said, we generally help you with anthropology news diaries on a daily basis, and the second thing is in your courses also we do. Thirdly, if you are the old student, from time to time the kind of information that we share, this is in general for the students of Sosin classes, but otherwise there are n number of journals which I generally used to suggest to you. If any good library is there nearby, university library, or you can perhaps stick to 2 or 3 journals like Current Anthropology or Man in India kind of things. So, journals will give you a good idea, because everything that comes in the newspaper cannot be taken to the exam, and just be watchful, keep looking into the new book releases. In Hindu also you keep getting new book releases, try to have a look at it if anything of anthropology content is being released kind of things, and always be abreast with the reports of the government like Tribal Affairs Ministry or any committee commission related to your syllabus. If any recommendations have come, maybe committees have been constituted, papers are submitted. So, those are the best ways of, and if as a part of your general preparation for UPSC, you would be doing that, slightly reorient, slightly tune it to the UPSC syllabus, you would be much more efficient.
Ma'am, can you please suggest the book list for anthropology optional?
Some books are there, and we would be looking at many more books in the I think in one of our future no, discussions like this, we will try to discuss several books. And I remember to have told you in our classes that if you are in the class with us, you don't buy any book. I mean, when I said that, that was not an arrogance. That was only to say that students should not spend a lot of time juggling through different books. One major disadvantage of your anthropology, especially for UPSC, is it is not there in one single book. It is dispersed in different books, and having those 20-30 books around you, that would be very treacherous. That's the reason why I wanted the students to primarily depend on the class book and then class notes and whatever books that we give. But otherwise, you know, there are huge number of books. But then you ask me the topic, I will tell you the book.
For theories, which book we have to refer? We have a number of theories.
Theories is generally Marvin Harris books we can. Marvin Harris Evolution of Anthropological Theory or Cultural Anthropology by Marvin Harris. I think those are the books where a lot of contemporary theories are covered.
Okay, ma'am. There is very specific, for genetics, which book is very preferable?
If it is very primary kind of things, the very basic, and even for this particular exam, anthropology optional, we don't need more than the basics. So, you can actually do this Orient Black Swan publications, Essentials of Human Genetics, that is class 12 book actually, that would suffice. And whatever anthropological studies are there, examples are there, they can be added to the basic content that you get from there. So, don't try to go to a very hi-fi kind of books.
Shall we pick a particular topic from a particular book is very important, ma'am?
We are never reading cover to cover, only certain topics that are necessary for your exam.
Thank you, ma'am.
If I had to suggest something for theories, then it would be ma'am's class notes.
Thank you.
The material that you are given is very good, and it's very good stuff as to add on the points in our exam. So thank you for the material and the class notes. Mainly class notes is very very helpful for us. So it's really we are blessed to be here.
So what's the right time to start answers, and what's the right time to go for a test series?
Answer writing, you mean to say? Yes. If you are undergoing a program, a course, right from the day one, I must say you should start. You might have learnt very little in the beginning of the course, as you might have seen in your own case. The first 1 week or 10 days when you are writing an answer, I know you wouldn't know where to start, and you wouldn't have so much of content also. But the same question, if you are writing at the end of the course, the answer will be altogether different. But then it doesn't mean that I will start once the course is finished. It should not be the way. So, right from the beginning you should start writing, however little it might be, whatever you understand from there. You have to properly file your answers. The same answer, same question, if you are answering after a while, you feel the previous answer to be so stupid, so immature. But then that is how you appreciate, and you are learning. The growth process of your content, your understanding is just in front of you, how you have written previously and how you are writing now. So, I think right from the day one you will have to start writing. And when you have asked about test series, I mean, if at all you are doing the course itself is giving a test series in addition to whatever daily you are writing. After finishing that one round of tests, then you can plan based on when your exam is. Suppose this year you are writing the exam, for example, you don't have much time between your prelim and main, you only have a 3 months time. So, in that 3 months time, a quicker test program, like we have one program called Anthro Enhance, where 10 tests will be there every week you are writing. But then the syllabus will be huge. I mean, sectionally we would give entire first section of first paper, second section of kind of. But then suppose you are writing the next year, you have 1 full year at your disposal. Then you can take small chunks every week and start writing small tests, and then, but then that continuity is very important. If you have taken coaching in 2022, studied the subject in 2020, writing the exam in 23 or 24. So, there should be a continuity there, and for that continuity these weekly writings would definitely help.
Thanks for that. And coming to the sectional tests that you have provided, they helped us in retaining the subject. And again, as the UPSC exam is like a marathon, so what are the other tips that you suggest for a candidate to retain the subject, because it takes like 10 to 12 months of a preparation for a candidate. So what are the other tips in addition to these sectional tests and all?
I mean, is it for anthro you are mentioning or in general?
In general for an optional, and yeah, it would be a necessity as we are discussing about anthropology, and that would help the candidates.
See, one thing is having that scribbling of basic facts is necessary. So, all those facts in one small book form, or the flashcards what we say, which thinker, what books, which society, and then definitions being written at one place. So, as you are traveling or as you are simply having a cup of coffee, you can glance through. And one interesting thing that you should incorporate in your preparation is presenting the content in your own pictures. You should discover your own pictures, so that you are not giving the same content as the other person is giving. Even if the same flow chart is given, let it have your own flavor and the kind of table presentations, graphical presentations. So, you should have one dedicated compilation of all those pictures, and these things if you are constantly revising, this is one. Second thing is, in a long term preparation that you have, make it a point that every day at least you write one answer, irrespective whether it is a small or bigger answer, etc. Pick up one question towards the end of your day and try to write an answer, and that is the best way of being in touch. Being in touch is very important. You are not reading the entire subject, you may be reading one small topic only, but that sense of being there with the subject is very important.
As we know, the civil service exam, it's like a 3-step hurdle. We have prelims, mains, and then interview. So when it comes to interview, what kind of questions can we expect from anthropology subject?
One very basic thing is, there is this general way of asking questions from tribal anthropology. Mostly questions revolve around tribal anthropology. So, one has to be really thorough with one's own region. Suppose you come from one particular region, Hubli or wherever, which are the tribes that are nearby, in your district whether you have any tribes, or in your state you have any, or your state policies regarding tribal welfare kind of things, and then how different they are at the national level. And so, tribal anthropology is something that has to be very thoroughly studied with a lot of contemporary things, because from time to time government comes up with the policies kind of. So, that is one very common thing. And questions from particular thinkers might come up, they might pick up a name of a thinker and ask questions from him, or maybe they may even ask you which thinker is the one that you like the most and why exactly you like, which theory you like, kind of things. Or things from the contemporary developments, any discovery had happened, any fossil unearthed, kind of things. Sometimes in the social context also, like if at all a divorce act got modified or gay marriages are being permitted, your opinion as an anthropologist, kind of things. So, you have to see to it that your answer is more application based. It should not be a very academic kind of a thing, it should suit to the situation and try to provide a solution to. So, application based answers are necessary. Question may look to be very simple, but answer should definitely incorporate application.
Yeah, ma'am, how to get reconnected with the subject after a long gap of preparation? If I mean, for example, like some health issues or something, from which point we have to start again if we lost the
From where you
connectivity?
have stopped.
Okay, ma'am.
It's as simple as a relationship you have with somebody, right? There was a gap in the relationship, and then you're confused from where to start. You start where we have stopped from, as simple as it is. So every time you don't go back to start, like how, whenever you are stopping history, you go back to IVC and you start from there. Your IVC is very strong, rest of the things are weak. So don't do that.
Many people have this doubt.
You have to start where you have stopped from.
Okay, thank you.
So ma'am, can we expect the questions from the topics based on the weightage from the previous year questions?
To certain extent, yes. To certain extent, yes. Like, randomly if we see chapter 10, 11 and 12 in the first paper, there are definitely questions from there. So this broader understanding you should have, but pinpointedly which question can be asked is based on the various developments in the field. And sometimes, it happens, last year a question was asked, this year also it will be asked, next year also it will be asked. So it looks like, why is it that this question alone is being asked? It is not because last year he had asked the same thing he is repeating. It is not like that. There might be some reason. Something might have happened either academically or various other ways, and hence there would be a repetition of the question. But otherwise, yes, there are certain places from where more number of questions would come. Like you have seen in your course, archaeology is there, 170 marks out of 500. That's a huge sum. So definitely those places are there where from a lot of questions do come.
And ma'am, in addition to that, let's say the candidate has prepared very well for the subject, and based on his rationality, he has decided these topics would be the expected questions for the next year. So what's your take on that? Looks like, should the candidate expect those topics to be coming, or he should be in a conventional way to revise everything from the topics?
See, overall understanding is mandatory, and then expected areas definitely, you would boil down to that, and you try to, when you are revising in the last leg of your preparation, you will do that. But the only thing is, don't restrict yourself to those 30-40 questions or whatever number of questions. You should be able to handle even if something comes out of blue. It means that your foundations have to be really strong. So make your foundation strong, and sometimes, even if you haven't revised in the recent past, because you had this foundational, understanding, you would be definitely able to write in the exam based on the overall understanding you have. So that has to be properly built, your overall understanding and conceptual clarity. Based on that, even if you haven't revised certain things in the last days of the exam, it doesn't matter.
Will our anthropology knowledge help us in GS answer writing?
It should definitely help. One direct way of, see, we shouldn't try to popularize one optional saying that, see, this would help in general studies here kind of a thing. But then, yeah, content and approach wise, there might be disadvantaged sections, Indian society and social justice related topics, they directly have anthropology content, but how you present there would be different from how you present in your optional. That is the key. And even in general essay papers also, we get essays where background of culture and anthropology would definitely be of help, religion based essays and things like that. What I say is, more than the content etc., the way you look at things, you develop that in the subject, the overall 360 degrees understanding, from which perspective we will have to present, and even if you are trying to analyze a problem, how exactly to analyze a problem. Is it that from the victim's point of view I should analyze, or is it from the culprit's point of view, from the administrator's perspective, or from the legal perspective, from which way I should. I mean, I think that kind of an understanding is much more with the subject rather than pinpointedly the content. So it's the overall personality that gets developed in the subject.
Is there any tip to cover the syllabus in a short period of time? Because many people are they are preparing after the clearing prelims. So can you please suggest any tip to cover as fast?
See, if at all somebody is starting after the prelim, then it will be very difficult. And this is the very reason why we suggest that you finish your optional before you start your general studies. The ideal thing will be, once your prelims is over, you are simply revising and not reading anything new. I mean, it may be 10-15% of new things that might have come into your way, but otherwise that is the time for majorly revision and writing alone. But then, yeah, first 1 month soon after your prelim, without waiting for the result, you should give the time, maybe 6 hours, 7 hours every day. Try to give a complete reading of the syllabus, because once the result comes, general studies occupies a whole lot of time. You will not have much time for your optional. So, by the time the result comes, one complete reading should be over.
Ma'am, how many hours of how many hours that we spend for a optional subject in the prospective of working professional or the full time UPSC aspirant?
It is generally said, work expands to fill the space. Even if I give you 10 hours, you might be having a problem, and then if he is having 3 hours, kind of a thing. But then, see, it's an individual to individual variability. Some people might grasp things very fast, some may not. So, that is very specifically individual oriented. But then I think 3 to 4 hours in a day would be a good amount of time to finish the syllabus in. I mean, once you have completed one reading, to revise and to get that mastery, I think 3 or 4 months of time every day, 3 to 4 hours, I think that should do a reasonable job. I mean, that's again a very conservative kind of a thing. Individual variation may be there. If everything is ready with you, material is written, then it would be 3 or 4 hours of time, 3 months, that's a jolly good time. But material is not there. I have read superficially, I have to write down. I don't think that's the time.
Ma'am, as we have covered the optional from 90 odd classes, so, and again in that 90 odd classes you have turned a layman in anthropology to an amateur writer for an UPSC. So, in that perspective, what is the standard time that you would suggest for an average student to complete the syllabus for an optional?
I mean, once again it comes to, if I am considering you, I mean the one who is undergoing the program, about these 90 odd classes you might have done in about 4.5 months, 4 to 4.5 months. And as we all know, there are several loose ends, several homeworks are pending and PDFs are pending and all that. Suppose I am taking all that, it would add up to about 1.5 months easily, I mean 1.5 to 2 months. So, I think a jolly good 6 months is necessary for a decent completion of the subject.
I have two interlinked questions. Say, unfortunately, an aspirant couldn't crack this exam. So, how will anthropology be useful in his future? And B, if he cracked the exam, as an administrator, how he can make use of the subject?
You have actually asked another question earlier about where in general studies anthropology can be used. I think the same holds good for an administrator also in the problem solving approaches. And suppose you are posted in a particular area where maybe a tribal population is there, or an area where a specific kind of a crime is there mostly prevailing. So, I think in those cases a direct application is there, but otherwise an overall perspective can be had as an administrator from this particular discipline. That is one, because we always have the dictum, the subject is to have a better understanding of the others, other people, other persons. So, that way it is there. Second thing you said is, suppose one couldn't clear the exam, and basically that is how we were doing in the class also. Several of you got enrolled to various anthropology courses, though it was a first attempt for many people. I think that is how you already have some kind of a basic thing, and there are different organizations that hire people with some kind of a certificate course that need not be a proper graduation or post graduation course. A certification course in anthropology, NGOs are hiring, and there are primarily jobs in the NGOs, and these days business establishments also, companies, industries are also hiring people from anthropology background. So, if at all one can develop their CV in that direction, that would, I think, definitely do, real wonders in the field of anthropology. So, people need not worry that they have studied this subject unnecessarily. Previously 4 years civil engineering I studied, nothing happened. Now 2 years I studied this, nothing is happening. I do not think that way. Ultimately what you have learned would definitely be of use in your life, especially the civil services preparation. The time that you are spending here, I do not think that is a waste of time. That would definitely help you somewhere or the other in your career. The knowledge, the time, the discipline that you have got, that will definitely, and this subject definitely would give you a career. There are jobs.
So an aspirant can become an anthropologist and serve the country again.
Ma'am, what will you suggest for the beginner while attending while writing answer writing? What are the tips or what are the mandatory things that you have to follow?
That's a very raw and rough question. See, for a beginner, you work on the structure. Initially, you have a standard structure. What I will write in intro, what I will write in the proper answer, how I will conclude. So, what you are writing in the intro and conclusion may be very basic, but then stick to the basics. Over a period of time when you are learning, your introductory remarks would definitely change, but then stick to the very basics. Suppose there is a question on caste related things, you go by definition, what are the various things, and be very simple. That would help.
Complex in English, we know that complex words are where, I mean, some of the people think that if we use complex words in the answer writing, we will get good marks. Is it really?
I don't think so, and such kind of a flowery language is not really necessary, unless otherwise there are certain terms in the subject that you are answering. Those are mandatory. Subject specific terminologies are mandatory, but otherwise.
So, ma'am, as you've been providing the value addition materials like PDFs in your coursework, so what are your expectations from the students to use them in their answer writing and all? Because sometimes being a student of anthropology is an overwhelming thing, and the materials that you have provided, in general, they make us feel like, okay, we haven't to been in subject that's a really a wonderful subject. So, what's your expectation from a student to use them in the answer writing?
Basically, the idea is these PDFs are over and above everything that we have done in the class. And sometimes a topic that you did not touch in the class, I might give as a PDF, because I think that that topic is relevant for the upcoming exam. If you observe, I mean, if at all you had been in touch with your seniors, etc., the kind of value addition material that we give to them and value addition material that I would be giving to, there is a lot of difference. There might be 10% similarity, but whole lot of things would be different. And the idea is, for any topic that I have given, bring it down to certain bullet points. Maybe the entire document of 10 pages, you would bring down to 10-12 points, and then try to incorporate that in the related things. So, if at all I am giving, say, about a 50 kind of topics, download them, get into a printable format and glance through and sort out. Generally, we give class wise only, class 10 this handout to be used. So, the idea is bring it down to 10 or 12 bullet points and try to add. Sometimes the document may give altogether different orientation to what you have studied in the class. So, that is for that purpose.
So, what questions would an interviewer ask to a candidate, being an anthropology student?
I think we had spoken about this. I said from your state, from the thinkers that you like, or it may be some concepts also, certain things that are in news. Say a denotified tribes related act being modified, if something is there in the news. So, I think a lot of things will be contemporary only. And sometimes random kind of questions might come, like what is business anthropology, what is design anthropology, where do you think anthropology can be used in industry. You are coming from particular electronic engineering, for example. and you have studied anthropology. How you bring these two together, electronic industry and anthropology, how you can do, so kind of thing. So, as I said to her, application based questions I think are expected in the exam.
Thanks.
Ma'am, I have a question, ma'am. Some of the people study the topic in the conceptual manner, and some of them are studied in the question and answer type. So, what will you suggest for an student, and what is the way to approach a concept in anthropology?
How to approach a concept, I don't think we will be doing here, but then the first thing that you have asked, what is the way to study? Should I study concept wise or question answer wise? Your study should always be content based, concept based, and your testing should be question based. Once you have learnt the concept, pick up a question, try to write the answer. It should not be the other way around, learning from question answer, that would be incomprehensive. So, an answer is based on what you have learned throughout the understanding. So, I think learn by concept, test by question.
Yes, ma'am. Another question. Sosin classes is aims at 340 plus marks out of 500 in anthropology. So, what is the strategy that you follow, and what will be? I mean, what will help us to score 340 plus marks if we are join in the?
First you join, then you will get it. No, but I mean on the lighter side. Basically, I bank on the students' performance for that 340. I try to, I mean, I personally try to, improve upon the content every year, so that whatever exams requirements are there, we go close to them. When it comes to the student, your regularity is important, your writing is important. I mean, the more closer you are with writing, the better your score will be. Even to the very close to the main exam, we should be constantly writing. That is the only key. Should go on writing and writing, revising and writing. That's the only key and nothing else.
Thank
As
you.
simple as it is.
Thank you.
So I hope to see you in 340 plus.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable inputs on all the queries. I hope this session was useful for many aspirants. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.